The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I am back after a few weeks off. I want to thank Johnny Fitty Falcone for filling in for me, the wonderful manager of the podcast, and being able to host the show while I recharge the batteries for it a little bit. But he did a fantastic job. Go back and listen to those episodes if you haven't. But my guest today, he is currently working at New Mexico State. He is the senior athletic director there. He has a couple of other jobs. We're going to get into that too as well. But James Hall joins the show. James, thanks for joining, man.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. So, first and foremost, you're out there in New Mexico at New Mexico State. You are the senior athletic director, but you do hold a couple other positions. So take me through what you do at New Mexico State.
No, absolutely. When you're at a school like New Mexico State, you've got other duties as assigned. And in fact, I think today I'm finishing my 17th year, starting the 18th year tomorrow. So been here a while. But as a senior associate athletic director and then the extended title of diversity, equity, and inclusion chief officer for athletics, because obviously that's a big piece of today's society. So I've taken that on. But main responsibilities is overseeing all the academics for our 400 student athletes and 16 sports. And so they keep me young. I will tell you that. I also work with our sports performance program, our camps, housing, dining. So again, a lot. When you have a staff like ours, you just have to really kind of have a lot of tentacles in the different areas. And so while it's a lot, it's also you get to understand the industry as a whole.
I was going to say, man, I was trying to count. I was going to start needing to use my toes there for a minute with everything you do. So what does a day-to-day look like for you with holding all those titles?
Well, it's funny you say that, and here's my answer, and it's been that way since I started. Way back, I'd like to say I was an athlete student when I was at Iowa State, and talk about that later. But there's no 2 days that are ever the same. I mean, there is not a ebb and flow. It's just a go. And when you come in, you get a project that'll take you all day. Another project take you 5 minutes. It just kind of depends on you're in season, you're out of season. I also work with teams, so which teams you're working with, how essential do the coach need this? Well, coaches always need something yesterday. I mean, that's just go, right? But yeah, there's just no 2 days, and that's what makes it fun. But also when you're kind of multitasking, you have to learn the cycle, right? Yeah. So that you're not just overexerting yourself, but then you're not kicking back like, man, there's nothing to do, because there's always something to do, especially in a high pressure packed collegiate athletics of 2023.
Yeah, I relate to that 100%. As a comedian and a stand-up, like there's no days that are the same in and of itself. And I deal with a lot of people on a daily basis. I got my manager of this podcast, I got my comedy manager, merch store managers, and then I'm dealing with bookers and promoters and everything for the show, and trying to tell people that they see me on my phone a lot, and they're like, "Well, do you do anything? You're always on the phone." I was like, "I'm work. Trust me. It doesn't look like work to you, but I'm fielding a lot of calls. I'm fielding a lot of text, emails, and then on top of that, I got to find time to write new material. You know what I mean?
Right.
And keep it fresh throughout the shows that I do, and it's fun though. I don't see it as work, but a lot of people also see, well, oh man, well, you're a comedian. You work like an hour a day, right? It's like, no. Like, you don't see the lead up to actually performing a show and actually getting on stage and trying to develop that craft to be funny, because not everything's funny. But, it's a lot of give and take. And I'm sure you have that in your day to day, dealing with all the coaches and different personalities is really what I'm getting in, because not every coach for each individual sport has the same style. So how do you deal with that?
Man, it's kind of like what you said, right? You try to make sure you work on your craft every day. And I was just reading something today, and it talks about if you can make people laugh, I mean, you're just kind of not necessarily part of the 1%ers, but if it's easy for you to do that, then you really got a special gift, right?
Yep.
And and what you say, I mean, it just comes to your mind. I'm sure it does. What you can bring to your mindset, other people can't real quick, right?
Yeah.
But that's just how you live your life, and it's just working on your craft. And sometimes you're like, I'm not even trying to be funny. That's just who I am. And getting back to what you're saying, right? It's the personalities, and that's the biggest thing, because that's what you're managing, right? Yeah. It's personalities, it's egos. At every level. I don't care if you're at the Power Five, or you're at like us at the mid major or a group of five, and I don't care if you're at a NAIA or you're a junior college, right? Everybody's got that ego, and so you're dealing with those personalities, but you got to take yourself into their world and say, okay, I get it, because this is what people don't understand about athletics, and you kind of divide it real quick. What I do on a daily basis, that's kind of that's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
What coaches do, that's a livelihood. It's kind of like when you say a comedian, right? That's my livelihood. If I'm not funny and I'm not getting shows booked, I mean, that's kind of eating in my pocket there a little bit.
100%.
So that's what you do for coaches. You understand, first and foremost, look, I get it. It's your livelihood. You're on contract. I'm an exempt employee. You can be let go. You're under the microscope. I'm in the kind of the backdrop. I'm advocating for you. But also, I say I'm kind of like Mountain Dew, man. I've been there, done that. Like I said, I was a former, I like to say, athlete student, because I didn't focus on my academics very well.
Yeah.
Long story short, got into Iowa State. It was a great experience. Got my degree, ran track. And I started getting involved in athletics. I was at Ohio State for 10 years before coming down here. So, I've been at different stages. The only thing I haven't been is a coach. I coach my kids, but then they said, okay, Dad, after, these junior high years, we're going to let you go. And I said, yeah, you're right. I'm probably going to have to go ahead and brush my skills off somewhere else, But, back to your question and your answer, right? And it's what you're talking about. And when you're in a show, you're kind of picking out personalities.
Yep.
Like, if you pick somebody in the audience and then that doesn't go well, you'd be like, okay, I might need to pivot real quick, because I don't think this is going to go where I want it to go. So I'm going to just slide to the next table or the next person. And you're doing the same thing with a coach, right? It's in season, it's out of season, it's recruiting. You're traveling, you're on the road, all that stuff you mix up. But at the end of the day, you say, look, we all got a job to do. And so as long as you have the level to respect each other, that's where you have a common ground.
100%. And you hit the nail on the head with, being a comedian and, doing a show. And I use the crowd to pivot if a joke doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, okay, that kind of bombed, and then I just kind of point somebody out of the crowd, because when you can start joking around and making fun of people, then people in the crowd look at him like, oh yeah, he does have weird glasses or something, it just whatever it is, and it brings the crowd back on your team, and you can save a show that way. But I've been there, done that, been doing this 11 years, and it could backfire on you in a hurry too as well.
Yeah, you say that, the first word that comes to my mind is like that. You call that audible, right? You call it, and you're like, damn, they had the right defense. This ain't gonna work. And I do have a newfound respect for comedians today, because I do think today's society, we're very, very sensitive.
100%.
Across the board, right? And, I was reared by my grandmother, so I'm a generation away. My brothers and sisters and I. So I understood life a little bit different, right?
Yep.
Then you fast forward, then you got technology, so everybody is a subject matter expert, and now we've got and I'm all about understanding differences, right, culturally and otherwise. But I do think it doesn't allow us to really express ourselves the way we need to, especially in your space, because that's like if you came to the comedy show. Okay, this is supposed to be funny. We're gonna tell jokes, and if it's not good, you probably should have known that we were gonna get a little bit raw around the edges and do all that. And I just that's what I miss. Now again, I think obviously COVID had something to do with it, but I can't imagine you having to look at your material now and be like, yeah, I don't want to be having to deal with this group of people or that group of people because I said something that was insensitive at a comedy show.
Oh, yeah, it makes my job 1,000 times harder because, like you said, you're going to a comedy club or a bar that has on the big marquee comedy night. You know what I mean? Like, they tell you, like, you're going to hear some off-the-wall things. Like, we're going to just feed off the crowd. And if we're doing good, a lot of times people ask me, like, well, how do you write that material? How did you come up with that? And perfect example, 2 months ago, 3 months ago now, 3 months ago, I did a comedy contest. I normally don't do comedy contests anymore because, I'm a little bit more of a seasoned guy, and the comedy contest is just more for me, like, let me go brushing up on a few things, and I'll mingle with some of the up-and-comers and everything like that too as well, and, just network with people. But I did a contest, and people were like, oh my God, that 5-minute set you did was hilarious. How did you write that? I went, I didn't. That wasn't anything that I had planned to do. I started talking to people in the crowd, and I just rolled from that. And people don't realize that comedians, we're really quick on our feet. Like, we can come up with something. And growing up the way I did, like you said, you were raised by your grandparents. Well, I grew up in a steel mill town, blue-collar town in West Virginia, where if you weren't going along with the joke, you were the butt of the joke. So it was, you had to learn to go along with it. And I tell people like that, that's probably why I'm a comedian, because my family, all we did was crack jokes on each other, and we still do. Like, I live 2 hours away from, my family, my dad and all, mom and dad and all that, and call them every day, and I still get the same answer from my dad when he answers the phone. And it's just us ragging on each other. And, like, called him one time, and it had been a little while since I had a haircut and stuff like that, so my hair was real long and shaggy, and I just got out of the shower, and it was a mess, and I called him just to check in, talk with him, and as soon as he answered the phone on FaceTime, he goes, "Whoo, look at the head on that. What did you do today?" I was like, I just got to shower. Shut up, old man. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's just how we work. And it's fun. And people, like you said, people are getting a little too sensitive nowadays. And I tell people all the time, like, hey, if you're offended by something that I say, A, I'm sorry, but B, I really don't care. Like, 'cause I'm joking. Like, I'm not serious about this. This isn't a dissertation or something like that. I'm up here cracking some jokes. Just have a drink, enjoy yourself, and, get out of here. I don't care. Like, that's just where you kind of have to be. You have to have a very thick skin for what I do, because people are going to come up to you all the time and, like, oh, I didn't like that joke. You paid. Mm-hmm. I already got your money, so I really don't care.
Right. Yeah, and it's like athletics, right? I think comedy is the same. I mean, you're entertaining.
Yep.
right? You're entertaining, and sometimes you're gonna like the outcome, and sometimes you're not. But the fact that you're supporting the team, that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You're gonna help me get better at what I do. We gonna, I'm not about the, everybody's gotta, feel the same, and we gotta eat at the same
Right.
time. I'm not about all that. I do think it's important that we understand differences as you go, but when you're in that space, that's where I think we've lost. We just lost understanding the dynamics of where we're at and why we're going there. You're going there to take a load off and, let your hair down. Of course, I can't do that anymore. And just enjoy the moment, right? And enjoy people. And then you can call people out, but not in those types of space. I think we've gone a little bit too far. We're trying to make sure every single platform is correct, and that's just too much for anybody to have to go through and make sure that you're not offending anybody. I think that's a lot of pressure on everybody.
Absolutely. So I want to get into this because you mentioned it a couple times, but you said you were an athlete student. I like that term because I feel like I'm the same way. I didn't really focus on my academics as much in college as I should have. I focused on my athletics and swimming. I was a swimmer.
Yeah.
But so take me through a little bit of your journey getting into college. You said you went to Iowa State. Is that
Iowa State?
Iowa
Correct.
State. So take me through a little bit of your journey getting into college athletics.
Sure. Okay. I'll do the quick version. It'll be a little bit longer than a 30-second elevator speech. But yeah, originally from Chicago, Illinois. So grew up there, and then I was about 8 or 9 years old. Our uncle was getting his PhD at Iowa and said, "Hey, I think you need to move to Chicago, or you need to move to Iowa. I think the kids will have a much better opportunity there." So long story short, we went from the skyscrapers of Chicago, because I thought everybody lived in Chicago back then, shit, I didn't know. And so we were catching a Greyhound bus, and you just see the buildings get smaller, space gets a lot wider, and you're seeing these things called cornfields, and before you know it, it's just open skies, right? And you're just like, okay, where are we going? And so we get to Iowa. I think that was 1977, and it was certainly a culture shock. But I'm a people person, so while it was overwhelming for a 9, 10-year-old, I thought I was okay, right? There was obviously some prejudices there because we were one of the first few black families in Iowa City. And so you could feel the tension. That's when I knew I was different. And that's the part where you're like, yeah, you there's something like different. And so, but what helps you is your ability to communicate with people. And then I was, you step on the playground, I'm one of the fastest ones out there. So they love you, right? They let you can roll and yeah, come with me, do this and that. So it was folks were very engaging, but long story short, lived there, stayed there. Then I did all the sports, basketball, football, track. Then I focused on basketball because I thought I was going to be the next Michael Jordan. I said, I'm going to grow. I'm going to be good. I had the knee brace and everything. And I was trying to get his moves, but didn't grow. So I said, okay, not a problem. So long story short, high school track coach, Coach Hollingsworth, who I still talk to today. We text each other every week. And he says, hey, you want to run a college? I said, yeah. Because it was a crazy thing. My senior year in basketball, we went 0-18. I mean, we was just, I ain't gonna lie. I don't like to say that we was hot garbage. I don't want to say that. So I'm going to say we build a foundation for the folks that came after us, because they won a lot of state championships afterwards. So that's what we did. And so about halfway through my senior year, I was one of the fastest 400-meter runners in the state of Iowa. Last track meet of the season, I became one of the top 800-meter runners in the country. So the problem is I forgot the academic piece. Yeah. And so that's when they had the standardized test score, the SAT, ACT. Took the ACT, didn't qualify. So I had to forego all my scholarships. I was at Iowa State. I was going to Arizona State. Everybody was picking me up. But I couldn't go after I graduated. So that would have been June of '86. So I had to sit out a semester, did that. Then, fortunately, and I hated Iowa State, I'll be honest with you, because I grew up in Iowa City, so I was a Hawkeye fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going. And Iowa State actually flew me, which was crazy, flew me in a plane from Iowa City to Ames, which is now a 2 hour and 15-minute drive. But they flew me, and I thought I was just so big time right there. I'm like, man, this is cool. I still don't like them, but I love the fact that I was getting treated like a king. Long story short, couldn't get into Iowa because that's where I decided I was going to go. Iowa State called like 15 minutes and was like, hey, I think we can get you in. At that point, I didn't care. I just wanted to go to school. I had sat out a semester. I'm sitting at home. I'm not working. I'm watching the soap operas with my grandmother. I'm like, no, this ain't it. I said, no, I'm waiting for my friends to get out of high school. You know, they get out 3:30 because I'm not doing anything. I'm like, I got to get back in school. And so fortunately enough, got into Iowa State. Coach Bill Birkin, he just passed away last year, and we went to. He was a tremendous guy. He was phenomenal coach and just a businessman, and made us become young, successful men. He did that from day one. My grandmother loved him, and she wanted me to go to Iowa State because he came to the house and visit, and she just loved him from the start. But long story short, you know, I was that athlete student, always on the verge of being ineligible, but finding a way to get eligible. You know, ran well. I was All-American. We were Big 8 champs. We did all that stuff. But that journey alone really helped me captivate the understanding education is a cornerstone of your life. Now, I'm not saying you need a degree, but I'm saying you need a craft. Okay? And if you don't have that, it's really difficult for you to penetrate any type of market. So you don't have to have the college degree, but it can be a carpenter, mechanic. I mean, you name it. But you have to be educated in something, right? The degree is just a certification, which you get in mechanics, which you get in a carpentry. But you have to have that to give yourself a chance, I think personally, in some way, shape, or form. And so went through all of that. Had a chance to get recruited to go to The Ohio State University as an academic advisor. In fact, I was the first black male academic advisor at Ohio State back in '94. Actually, Roxanne Price, who she saw me at a national convention and was like, man, I think we need to get this guy. I was a graduate student at Iowa State at the time. As a matter of fact, I went on and got my master's and did all that. And so that experience of giving back and helping young men and young women understand the importance of education, that became my passion and my purpose.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you hit on a lot of things that I can relate to 100%. Like you said, you know, the athlete student, you know, being eligible and not liking really the college that you went to, Iowa State. I went to Bethany College, little D3 school, mainly because, like I said, I was a swimmer. But in high school, you know, I played football, I swam, I played football to be with my buddies and, you know, kind of hang out with them and kind of stay in shape for swimming because it was the seasons butted right up against each other. So I was leaving football right in shape and going right into swimming and not having to worry about, oh, now I got to get myself back into shape and everything like that. So it was a little bit of an easier transition for me. Well, lo and behold, senior year, I got offers from a bunch of D1 colleges. West Virginia was one of them. Dream school. I'm a Mountaineer through and through, born and raised in West Virginia. If you don't like the Mountaineers, they kind of kick you out of the state pretty much. So, you know, I had the offer to go and swim for them. And that, in my mind, all right, well, that's where I don't even, who cares about the rest of these offers? I'm not even going to open and look at them. I don't care. I'm going to WVU. That's where I want to go. Well, senior year, first day putting on pads, I hit a pad, and I feel a pop in my shoulder, and it goes down my arm and into my finger. And that dumb 17-year-old kid, it's just a stinger. Whatever. I'll deal with it. I'll be fine. Played the entire season on it. Well, I get into swimming, and I can't do my stroke at all with my left arm. Coach sends me to the hospital, to the doctors to get it checked out. I played an entire football season on a separated shoulder. I separated my shoulder the first day we put on pads and were able to hit sleds and stuff like that. And as soon as every college heard, well, he has an injury, especially a shoulder injury for a swimmer, they were like, thanks, but no thanks. We'll see you later. We're not going to redshirt you. Nothing. Just dropped all of the scholarships that I had, except for Bethany College. They were the only one that kept my scholarship to go and swim there. I was like, well, I guess that kind of makes the decision pretty easy where I'm going to school because they're the ones giving me some money to go and be an athlete there. And they let me, they couldn't really redshirt because it was D3, so they let me be a quote-unquote manager of the team so that I could rehab my shoulder my freshman year and then jump into swimming my senior year, or sophomore year. Well, it was, like you said, once I was in season, I didn't care about classes or anything like that. And coach would come up to me. He was like, man, like one more C and you're not going to be able to swim in this meet. Like that's where we're at right now. I'm like, I'll be eligible, coach. Don't worry. I'll be eligible. And I was always on that cusp of not being eligible to perform. But my coach, sophomore year, near the end of the season, really instilled in me that, academics matter. Your shoulder still isn't 100%. We know that. I can see that just from your strokes and everything like that. So you going anywhere in swimming is probably out of the question. So really made me focus on that. And then, later on in life, this was, I guess real later on in life because it happened, the new show on Paramount, The Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. There was a line in that movie that really opened my eyes a little bit. That kid he was working with was telling him like, "Oh man, I don't need to go to college. That doesn't worry me. School's not for me." He goes, "You think any employer gives a crap about what type of degree you have?" He goes, "No. Yeah. What you're telling them is that you were able to go to a place, show up on time for 4 years, complete some tasks, albeit if it doesn't have to be outstanding, complete them on a timely manner. That tells him you're not going to screw up his business, and that makes you hireable."
Yes.
And I was like, holy crap, I fought school for, and it's those things later in life that the light bulb finally clicks. Like, I can't believe it took a TV show for me to realize that. So, you have those aha moments, and I think it makes everybody a better person. Like you said, go to a trade school, learn to be a mechanic, learn to fix a toilet, be a plumber, electrician, whatever. Right. Somebody needs those skills because I'm at the point now where I know I can do stuff, but if I can hire somebody to do the work for me, that's what I'm going to do. Like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, just, 1,001%, right? And that's the biggest part of it, as you talked about it, just enhancing your skill set, creating that trade because there's a need. And I don't care if it's athletics, music, art, or dance, or whatever it is, right? And sometimes the great thing about college is it's kind of a placeholder, in my opinion, in that it allows you the chance to just kind of venture a little bit in this thing called life. And you get those, the epiphany and the aha moments, and whether it's maybe what your dad had told you 2 decades ago that just keeps popping up. You're like, man, old man was right, man. He just what he was talking about, right? But you got to experience it yourself, and I think that's the biggest part about life with these young, adults is that you have to experience some things and really kind of grind through it a little bit so that you understand the importance of it, the journey, and what it's worth to you. Because that's the element, and that's that I wanted to really thank Coach Ernest Wilson for connecting us, because that's what you get. You get relationships, right? Because he was the running back coach here at New Mexico State when I first came, and that's when our boys were playing, and he was getting them connected to the high school. But it was the relationships that we had that was 17 years ago, and we're still making connections through those relationships. And it's through the entity of sports, which is a $90 billion annual industry.
Yeah.
And so that's why we were on the front page, ESPN. And I was just going to throw this what most people don't realize. ESPN spawned about 1984 because they got sued by University of Oklahoma and Georgia for monopolizing the multimedia rights. Because the NCAA, they were the ones who determined who was going to play on TV.
Yep.
Went to the Supreme Court, the Sherman rule. They said, nope, you can't do that. voila, everybody's on TV. So what I'm saying is, when you look at how things have evolved, even for NI and the name, image, and likeness today, to all the transfer portal, to all these other things, the thing you have to understand, you're your own business entity, and so you better do your homework, okay? Because and you better know what's that? And I'm sure you've heard it. We all have heard it, right? The KYP, know your personnel.
Yeah.
Well, before you know your personnel, you better know yourself. And that's the part where the skill sets and the crafts and, like I said, the journey that you went through, I think makes it, I think, credible to the most important person, and that's yourself.
Absolutely. And, I tried to instill this into my son and stuff like that, too, as well. And it was something that my dad taught me. And I run on what we call Lombardi time.
Mm-hmm.
Early is on time. Yeah. On time is late. If you're late, don't even bother showing up. And my son, he's 14, so he's that stubborn teenage years, and just he knows everything, so it's fine. But taking him to football practice, he's like, "Why are we leaving so early?" And I just tell him, "What is the Bonaventura rule?" And he repeats it. I make him repeat it back to me. Early is on time is late, and late you shouldn't even bother showing up. It's like, you say it with an attitude right now, but you'll appreciate that later in life. Trust me.
Yeah.
I did the same thing when I was your age to Pom. You know what I mean? Like, I was, oh, Dad, it's so early. Why are we here this early? But now, my bosses at my day job praise me. Like, you're a half hour early to every shift. Yeah. Because I'm on time. That's on time for me. That's what it is. That's, if I'm ever, I showed up right on time. One time I got stuck in traffic, and I showed up right at the start of my shift, and well, you made it on time. I was like, no, I'm late. This is late for me, and I apologize for being late. And they appreciate that later in life, and trying to let him know that is, I might as well talk to the desk that I'm sitting at right now. I might get some more answers out of that than him right now. So
he's listening. Trust me. Our kids are 24, 29, and 32. Be 33 soon, and they listen, because I can't tell you the conversations that I've had with them about stuff we talked about 20 years ago. I'm like, it did sink in. Okay, it did mean something. It does matter. And like you said, when it comes to being on time, right? Fixing your bed, doing the dishes, take out the garbage. I'm not trying to tell you that to punish you. I'm just telling you, once you create that discipline and realizing that's part of a routine and you're getting better at it and more efficient, that's the key.
Yep.
So, he's listening. He's listening.
His mother and I are such routine-oriented people. Like, you can set a watch to us, with what we do. Even our morning routine, we get up, and, I'm up 6 a.m. every day. I probably don't even need to set an alarm at this point in time, because my body just wakes me up now at 6 a.m. I get down, I start my coffee, I sit down, I watch a little bit of SportsCenter. That's kind of my little bit of my me time to sit, catch up on my sports for the day prior, see what's coming up. And then when I'm done with my coffee, I get my shower, I get ready, and then I'm off to work. Yeah. I'm up an hour before I even have to start getting ready to get myself ready for the day. Sitting there just drinking my coffee, and it's bad now, but, I am a smoker, sitting there drinking my coffee, smoke a cigarette, watch the SportsCenter, get the information I need to feel better about myself. It's kind of my meditation. You know what I mean?
Yes, there you go.
And then even when I get to work, I'm sitting down at my desk, I do this, and this, I start my day. Same way on the way home. When I get home, first thing I do, obviously I get home, if my wife's home, give her a kiss, give the dog a kiss, give my son a kiss, because the dog greets me before anybody else. So, so she's taking precedent, I guess.
There you go.
I go through my day, and my wife's the same way. She gets up way earlier than she needs to get herself ready, to just kind of have that routine. And if our routine is off in the slightest bit, if something happens, I feel like the whole day's shot. Do you feel like that in your day to day?
Yep. No, absolutely. I mean, we've been married 32 years, and the most important day is tomorrow. And I've learned that, for many years, right? And when you say that, when something's off, that's why I tell her, I'm like, I know something's wrong. I mean, I've been with you over half my life. I mean, I know that, right? You know what works. And I think the best thing, that I tell my kids, and I'm sure you've told your son this as well, especially in today with technology and everything moving, the information superhighway and the access that you have, you still got to make adjustments. And that's why you got to be on time for things, because so many other things happen in such a different manner that you have to be prepared for.
Right. Absolutely. It's I can't tell you how many times, I'm on the road a lot, being a comedian and having a day job and everything like that. So I'm always leaving early because I've been burned where there's been an accident on the interstate and now I'm at a dead stop and nowhere to go. You know what I mean? There's nothing I can do. I'm in park right now on the interstate. Like that it's going to be a minute. You got to prepare for that. And I tell people, people always ask me all the time, well, why do you leave so early? I was like, I leave early because I prepare for traffic because I'm an adult. It's kind of like, that's the joke I make. I'm an adult. I plan ahead for traffic, and I plan for these things to happen.
You do, and the crazy thing about it is the reason, and I tell the wife a little bit, because, and this is what you can minimize on something simple like road rage. If you leave early and you're not really in that big, you're going to be mad because somebody cut you off, but you're not going to be mad they cut you off. You missed the light. Now you're going to be late.
Right.
See, so it's like, okay, this guy. And the way things are today, don't get out your car. Don't be flipping nobody off. It's unfortunately, it's that sensitive that's why you have to be a little bit earlier.
Yep.
So when you're pressed up against the traffic, I mean, I still got 3 more lights before I need to start being really concerned about me taking pride in being on time.
Right. 100%.
If it's something like that, I mean, it's just, those teachable moments, learning lessons. I try to just tell the kids, and we got grandkids now. We got 4 of them, trying to teach them. Ooh. Obviously, they're much younger now, but you're trying to get them to minimize some of the issues just by being ahead of the game.
100%. I agree with that 100%. James, we are running down near the end of the episode. A couple things I want to get in here first and foremost. So, New Mexico State, you're there as a whole, because I don't know if a lot of my listeners know about New Mexico State. So what is there to do on, campus, academically, socially, athletically? So take us through a little bit of the campus life of New Mexico State.
Yeah, here's what I tell people about Las Cruces. About a little bit over 100,000 people. It's different, but it's a good different. The quality of life is good, and it's a breath of fresh air. I mean, that's why we've been here for 17 years now. The campus is beautiful. It's open. We've got mountains. It's 325 plus days of sunshine. I think we're all got a little bit too much sunshine around the country these days. So I think we've got 37 days so far that we've had 100 plus degree, triple digits. And so, it's toasty over this way. But it's a land-grant institution, 1888, and it's about giving students an opportunity. We're ag, we've got engineering, business college as well, social science, education, and it really gives individuals that opportunity to kind of spread their wings. I've been to 2 other institutions, like I said, Iowa State, which I love as my alma mater, and appreciate everything that they've been able to do for me. I was obviously worked at Ohio State, as I said, and then been at New Mexico State. And the faculty and staff here are wonderful. They engage. They want you to be successful. It's kind of like a mom and pop store, right? Okay. We're just that little hometown. But I tell you what, we carry a chip on our shoulder with blue collar, and we're going to get after it. And that's what I love about it. We're never going to have enough resources, enough personnel, enough finances. But we come in, and you're gonna know we're there.
That's awesome, because I didn't know a lot about New Mexico State. Not gonna lie to you, I just not a part of the country I've been to. Hopefully there's somebody out there, a booker or promoter. I would love to come out that way.
Absolutely, I hear you.
Just getting that in there. Just saying.
Yes, sir.
Last thing I want to get in with you, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, Ernest Wilson, former guest of the show, good friend of the show, good friend me. I communicate with him as much as I possibly can. He's helped us out with connecting me with you. So how did that relationship start with you? Was it just primarily academics, or?
Well, it was primarily football because he was a running back coach here at New Mexico State when we moved here, and I came into administration. And at that time, James Jr. was going to be a sophomore in high school, and Xavier, I think, was in 8th grade. And so they played football. We came from Ohio, and they were very good in Ohio, so I knew they had a good chance of being really good here in New Mexico. So Ernest was one of the first people we met, and obviously they're trying to, say, hey, which high school is your son going to? And I'm like, well, so Ernest was, he set ties with Oñate, which is now the Oregon Mountain High School now. And so we created that relationship in 2006. And we've had it ever since then through his boys and them growing and them having kids. And like I said, if you don't learn anything else, and I'll do this plug, people talk about relationships. And so one of my friends, her name is Jackie Brown. She worked for Columbus Public Schools in Columbus, Ohio. And I made acronyms. So one of my first acronyms was CARE, Celebrating Academic Responsibility Every Day. She said, oh, I like that, James. She said, okay, can you make me an acronym for relationships? Now, that was 25, maybe 30 years ago. The acronym that I use the most, because that's what life is about, is making sure that you have some profound and genuine and authentic relationships. So my acronym for relationship is rapport, everyone links, and trust in one's, oh, man, wait a minute. Just missed away. So is rapport, everyone links, and trust in one's narrative story and historical individual parallel systematically.
Wow.
So I'll give it to you one more time. Rapport, everyone links, and trust in one's narrative story and historical individual parallel systematically. And that's what relationships are all about. And that's what I want. That's what Ernest got. That's what now you and I have. And there might be some booking agency over here that we may do some things, but it's because it's getting the people that you really like and and you're like, man, I'd love to continue to do business with that man.
100%. There's, wow. I don't think I could have came up with that many words for relationship. That's a long word, you know what I mean? Like yes. But that's phenomenal. That's yeah, that hits home. You know what I mean? You don't think of it that way till it's kind of brought into your face, and that's a perfect way to describe it. Because I mean, again, you mentioned it. You and your wife have obviously been together a whole heck of a lot longer than me and my wife. We've been together 8 years.
That's wonderful.
And like you said with her, like, I know something's wrong. I know something's up. Like, I can't stand when it's, what's wrong? Nothing. Don't, just tell me. I can tell. Like, I know what happened today. Just vent and rant about your day. Like, and we'll go and we'll move on. But yeah, so I get it, and that's a perfect way to describe it. But like I said, we are running down near the end of the episode here, but James, I do give every guest this opportunity at the end of every show. I'm going to give you about a minute. If there's anything you want to get out there, whether it's for New Mexico State, whether it's just a good message, anything like that, I'm going to give you about a minute. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Appreciate you giving me an opportunity to connect with you. I think this is going to go well beyond that. I'll just mention a couple of things. I've talked about the wife and the kids and, the cornerstone. I appreciate my grandmother said, believe in yourself, because if you don't, nobody else will. And I keep that to my heart. Dr. George Jackson, that's what I do on the side, majority of one. And that's the game of life. And game is graduating academic minds every day. And life is a learning institution for education. I want everyone listening, particularly the youth, to go for your dreams. Understand you have to grind beyond belief if you're going to be successful. Surround yourself with great people. And one of the accomplishments I've been able to make is I actually wrote just not a book, but a handbook. And it's called Becoming a More Successful You. But the most important thing about this, it's the life handbook for the everyday world you live in. Nobody else. What do you live in? And those are the acronyms in there that I just want everybody to understand. Stay positive, be influential, be who you are, and make sure that you live your purpose.
I got to tell you, James, I love it when guests have a good message at the end of the show, and that's a great message. And I absolutely hate that I have to do sponsorship reads after that, because it's a good way to end the show. But I got to get them in. We do have two new sponsors to the Ride Home Rants podcast. That is W Energy. Energy drinks for gamers, streamers, podcasters alike. Made by gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. No jittery feeling, no crash afterwards. It's actually starting to replace my morning coffee. I gotta say, I love my morning coffee, but I'm starting to have my morning W Energy. Gets me through my long, strenuous days of running 17 different jobs at once. Use the promo code Mike Bono. We'll get you 10% off of that. The last sponsor for the show here, one of my favorites, and that is Shank It Golf. Golf apparel for the everyday golfer. Golf is meant to be fun, and we here at Shank It Golf believe that too as well. You might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. If you're like me, you're going to shoot a 6 over par, if not more. Go there, check them out. They have a lot of great gear to help you rock it on and off the course. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 15% off. Once again, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to thank my guest, James Hall, for coming on. Great messages. Everybody, take a listen to this again and listen to what he has to say. There's a lot of informative stuff. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come and spend a little bit of our evening together here on the show. I really do appreciate you. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shank It Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par. But this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off there as well.